What is up, people? Hope you're doing great. I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to another video. Welcome to my channel. And guys, please, if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the channel, and also please push the notification bell if you haven't done so that you can get notified when I post a new video. And also please push that like button, push the thumbs up button to like the videos, because that really massively helps in terms of supporting the channel. And I apologize, guys, in advance. Maybe like at 6 or 6 or 6, my lighting is gonna go a bit dim, because I'll have load shedding from 6 to 9. So maybe I'll finish this video by 6 or 6, and basically, like, it's still like there's still light outside, but I won't have light inside. So my video quality might be a little bit suspect. So I apologize for that in advance. But yeah, guys, I just want to look at the Premier League games. I just want to review the Premier League games that played this weekend. Obviously, we had a full round of Premier League fixtures with all the clubs in action, and all the big six clubs in action. And fascinatingly, it was only Manchester City who won, or who got all 3 points this weekend, and all the other ones dropped points. And a couple of fascinating results here and there, and some brilliant performances from teams outside the top six, and especially Newcastle against Spurs, even though Spurs were quite a horror show yesterday, in yesterday's late kickoff, basically at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But yeah, man, some brilliant performances from certain teams. And I'll just start with the game that basically opened up the weekend between Liverpool and Nottingham Forest. Obviously, Liverpool lost 1-0 to Nottingham Forest, and I guess the perfect way to sum that result up is to say this is why we love the Premier League, because in the Premier League you cannot predict the results. Liverpool last week beat arguably the best team in Europe, or the best team in the Premier League, in Manchester City. I know Manchester City are not top, but we all know that Manchester City are probably the best team in the Premier League, even though Arsenal are top of the league at this moment in time. Liverpool beat Manchester City, and a week later, they lose to the worst team in the league, who are bottom of the league, in Nottingham Forest. So that's why I'm saying, I guess the perfect way to sum that up is to say this is why we love the Premier League. Because in La Liga or the Bundesliga or Serie A, you're not going to get a team that's in mid-table in the league beat the top team and then lose against the bottom team. So it was a fascinating weekend, fascinating result at the City Ground. And actually, I think Liverpool have struggled playing at that ground, like at the City Ground, in terms of the Nottingham Forest ground, for a number of years. And I think they haven't won there in the Premier League in a number of games. Obviously, the last time Nottingham Forest were in the Premier League was in the 90s, I think. I think they were relegated in 1997 or 1998, and that was the last time they were in the Premier League. So it's quite fascinating how, like, Liverpool were struggling at the City Ground in the 90s, and they then, like, lost their first game in the Premier League there in like 20-something years. So that's quite fascinating. But yeah, man, in terms of the performance with regards to Liverpool, just not good enough. I get it. They are struggling with a few injuries, but still, that team that was fielded by Jurgen Klopp should not be beaten by Nottingham Forest. They should not be, like, I don't want to say outclassed, because I wouldn't say Nottingham Forest outclassed Liverpool as in they played them off the park, because Liverpool actually had quite a few brilliant, clear goal-scoring opportunities in that game. I watched a bit of the second half, and there were a couple of opportunities that Van Dijk had, in terms of he had a clear header at goal, and he basically, both times, he headed it straight at the goalkeeper, and Dean Henderson made the save. Dean Henderson was brilliant, but there are a couple of opportunities, clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities that Liverpool had on another day where they could have done better, and opportunities where you could argue that they should have done better. Like, if you have a clean, like, basically, if you have a clear goal-scoring opportunity in terms of a header 2 or 3 yards from the goalkeeper, there's no ways you should be giving the goalkeeper a chance to save that. Like, if you put your header on target and it's 3-4 yards away from the goalkeeper, you're gonna score because the goalkeeper is not going to react. Like, he's not going to have the time to react and get to that save. But if you hit it straight at the goalkeeper, then the goalkeeper is just gonna save it because it's straight at him. So I thought the level of finishing of Liverpool, especially Van Dijk, who got those clear goal scoring heading opportunities, I thought it was poor. It was really poor. And he should have really done better from those situations. And then obviously, like, Liverpool defensively for the goal that they conceded, it was not a well crafted goal where Nottingham Forest kind of like outplayed Liverpool. But Joe Gomez, like, it all starts with Joe Gomez dwelling too much in possession because he has the ball and there's like 10 yards of space between him and a Nottingham Forest player. And he takes a heavy touch. And then as he's getting to the ball to try and recover the ball, the Nottingham Forest player presses him. And then he panics and he basically fouls the Nottingham Forest player. And then that gives Nottingham Forest a free kick. And it gives them a chance to push up the pitch and to put players into the box. Because, like, the teams that are going to be the team that always fight relegation in the Premier League, the teams that are fighting relegation in the Premier League always, like, they depend on set pieces. So you don't want to give them those opportunities where they can put a ball from a set piece in the box because they practice those situations so many times because they know that they don't have the quality to carve out clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities. Therefore, they rely on set pieces to bail them out. And they rely on their goalkeeper being man of the match, which Dean Henderson was, and they rely on a brilliant defensive display, which at times Nottingham Forest had. So it was poor from Joe Gomez in the sense that he had a heavy touch when really, like, I mean, if you're not being pressured and you get a simple ball, there's no way you should be getting a heavy touch as a professional footballer. So it was not good enough from him. And then he panics and he fouls the Nottingham Forest player, which gives Nottingham Forest a free kick and gives Nottingham Forest a chance to push up the pitch. And then they just put the ball in the box and then a couple of ricochets, then they score from that situation. And then from then on, they just defend. Liverpool probably would have been kicking themselves because there were a few opportunities in the first half where they were on top and they should have, you might have seen there that, like, my video went dim. That's the load shedding, guys, so I apologize. I've just basically load shedding has kicked in and there's no electricity. And we have it until now. Welcome to South Africa, I guess. But basically, I was saying Liverpool would have probably been kicking themselves in the sense that in the first half they had a few opportunities where they could have scored first. And if you score first in those games, it's a different game because you can't, like, as the opposition, like, if Liverpool scored first in that game, then Nottingham Forest would have had to come out, and therefore it would have been a lot more easier to play against them. But Liverpool did not take those opportunities, and as a result, they gave Nottingham Forest hope. They gave the Nottingham Forest fans hope, and it was a bouncing atmosphere at the ground. And Nottingham Forest is a big club in England. They've won the European Cup before. They've won the Premier League before. So they have a very strong fan base, and their stadium can be loud when their team is putting on a decent performance. And their team was putting on a decent performance in terms of keeping Liverpool out in that game. So Liverpool should be kicking themselves in terms of not scoring early, because in those games you have to kill the crowd. You have to kill the atmosphere and score first, and kill any sort of hope in the players and the coaching staff that they can get something from the game. As soon as you start kind of losing 50-50 battles against them, you start giving them a few opportunities, you don't take your own opportunities, then they start believing. They start having hope. The fans start having hope. The fans start believing. And then it becomes a very difficult game because they're believing, they make it a lot more difficult, and they get one or two opportunities and they tend to take those opportunities, which Nottingham Forest did. And as a result, it was a very difficult game for Liverpool, and they had to try and unlock the Nottingham Forest defense, which was very difficult. And also, what made the game difficult for Liverpool is that a lot of their players are injured. Jota is injured, Luis Diaz is injured, Darwin Núñez was injured, Thiago was injured. I think Trent didn't start, but I don't think he had an injury. I don't think it was a matter of him being injured. I think it was a matter of rotation, or it was a matter of he was dropped. But I get it. Liverpool are struggling with a few injuries a bit, but I think that still does not negate the fact that they should be winning against Nottingham Forest, because Nottingham Forest have not been that great this season. And even in that game, they were not that great. Not like they outplayed Liverpool. Just that Liverpool was so bad that Nottingham Forest got one opportunity and they took it and they defended for the whole game and they managed to keep Liverpool out from scoring. And it's a worrying run for Liverpool in the sense that they haven't won away this season. They've played 5 away games this season so far and they haven't won any. So that's a worrying stat. Because you're not always going to play at home. So you can't, like, it's not sustainable. Like, not winning away is not sustainable, especially if you are a club of Liverpool size who are ambitious and who want to at least make the top four. Because if they don't make the top four, then it's a very difficult situation, because even Jude Bellingham, who's their number one transfer target next summer, they can't get him if they're not in the Champions League. If they're competing with the likes of Real Madrid, Man City, Chelsea, and all these big clubs, if those big clubs are in the Champions League, then that automatically takes out Liverpool from the race of signing Jude Bellingham. So they have to improve and they have to start getting results. They can't like keep on losing and keep on drawing when they are away from home, because that's simply not good enough. It's like it's not going to be sustainable, and it's still too early to write Liverpool off in terms of top four, because there are many twists and turns that are going to happen this season. We're going to have the World Cup soon. What's this thing, man? I was looking for my water bottle there. We're gonna have the World Cup soon, and you don't know what's going to happen in the World Cup. It might be a blessing in disguise for Liverpool that there's going to be a World Cup, because it's going to give them a chance for, like, it's going to give their players who are currently injured a chance to fully recover and be ready for the second half of the season, which comes back which starts on Boxing Day. So I'm not going to say I'm writing Liverpool off in terms of top four, but they have to improve, man. It's not good enough losing against Nottingham Forest, who are bottom of the league, who are one of the ideal candidates that are going to be relegated this season. So they have to improve. They surely have to improve. I get it. It's not their best side that they put on in that game, because their midfield was Fabinho, Fabio Carvalho. They played a 4-4-2. And their midfielders consisted of Fabinho, Fabio Carvalho, Curtis Jones, and who was playing right? And Harvey Elliott. Which, I mean, that's not inspiring. That's an uninspiring midfield. And yeah, I mean, there's probably 6-7 midfield combinations from other teams that are better than that. So it's an uninspiring midfield, but it's still better than Nottingham Forest. And it should not be losing to Nottingham Forest. Salah was anonymous in the whole game, as he's been for the whole season. I understand he showed up against Man City and he scored, but he's been anonymous the whole season. He's had 3 goals so far this season. And by Salah standards, that's poor. It's not good enough, because Salah, this time last year, we were arguing that Salah is the best player in the world. He's the best player in football, because he was playing at such an elite level. I remember when we played against Liverpool in the first game last season in the Premier League, and Salah was brilliant. Without Salah, Liverpool in the first half was shocking in that game when we played against them at Anfield. And Salah came out in the first half and he took the game by the scruff of the neck, and he was responsible for both goals that Liverpool scored, especially the second one, where it was just a moment of individual brilliance from him, where he kind of like took on Bernardo Silva and Cancelo at the same time. And then he kind of, like, he dummied Laporte, and Laporte thought he was going to shoot with his left foot, and he went to his right foot, and Laporte, like, basically tried to block. And by the time Laporte was turning, Salah had already taken his shot, and he already scored. So it was a brilliant performance from him this time last year against City, and we were arguing that he could be the best player in the world. So it's just not good enough from him, with the fact that now, like, he hasn't even scored 5 goals in the Premier League. Is it because Mane is not playing with him? I don't know. I think partly it's because of that, but he has to be better. So yeah, man, I think that was the Liverpool game against Nottingham Forest. Just not a good enough performance from Liverpool. And then the other game that played on Saturday is the City game. Man City played against Brighton. And, you know, I was actually thinking about this earlier today, in that I don't know. Obviously, Man City won 3-1. I think that scoreline is a bit, maybe... Okay, let me not say it's a bit flattering, because at the end of the day, you have to score. And we scored 3 goals, and Brighton scored 1 goal because they don't have quality up front in terms of actually creating clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities and finishing them. Sometimes they do the part of creating them, they just can't finish, and therefore they get beat by teams. And like the scoreline is like 4-1 to another team against Brighton, but really that's not reflective of how they played in that game because they actually created chances. They just couldn't score. It was the same story against Man City, and this has been the same story with regards to Brighton for like 2-3 seasons now. Because even last year, I remember we played against Brighton at the Amex Stadium. We ended up beating them 4-1, but in the second half of that game, they completely outplayed us. But they could only score 1 goal, whereby they were on top for like 80% of the second half. And we were poor in the second half, but we still scored 1 goal. So technically, it was 1-1 in the second half, even though they were way better than us. And that's just the difference in class with regards to our team in terms of finishing and other Premier League top teams in terms of their finishing. And Brighton, they are able to create lots of opportunities. They're just not clinical. So their conversion rate is poor. Because they don't have good enough players. Like, they don't have that lethal striker who can score like 15 to 20 goals a season. And that's what Brighton are struggling with. And actually, I was wondering with regards to City, because there were times in that game where we were sloppy, and I think it was one of our worst performances so far this season, even though we won 3-1. But we were giving the ball away in silly positions. We were basically sometimes pressing, but it was like a half-hearted press. I don't know whether the lads were tired or but again, that sounds ironic because we actually didn't play midweek. We had a whole week to prepare for Brighton. So can I say they were tired? Which kind of leads me to my next point, in that sometimes I'm happy that we have a break in a week and we're not playing any games, but I then think about our performances after not playing a game in midweek, and when I think about the games where we haven't played midweek and we've played at the weekend, we've actually been quite poor. I remember going back to last season when we were 2-0 down against West Ham, like in the second last game of last season. We had a full week to prepare for them, so we didn't play midweek, yet we still were 2-0 down against them. And then I understand that the other circumstances that led us to being 2-0 down against them. It was not just the fact that we didn't play midweek, but I think I'm seeing a trend basically. And then the very next week when we played against Villa on the last day of the season, again, we were 2-0 down, even though we had a full week to prepare for them. And then this season, we had a full week against when we were preparing for Brighton, and we were we never went a goal down, but Brighton at times outplayed us in that game, and we're just unlucky not to score. So I think maybe when we're playing every 3 days, we get a rhythm, and therefore we are always at peak fitness and playing at that peak level because there's consistency. And as soon as that's kind of broken, that cycle is kind of broken, I think we do struggle a bit. Even though we haven't lost, from a situation like that, but our performances, when you look overall, in terms of our performances, there's been a few suspect performances when we've had a full week to prepare for a game. That's just a trend I'm noticing. But overall, some great goals, especially the first goal, Route 1 stuff. Edison, basically, Edison had an assist. Edison to Haaland. Haaland scores, basically. Great goal. Poor defending from Brighton because their line is too high. And if you up against Haaland, you can't do that because it's too pacey. If your defenders are right up to the halfway line, then you're putting yourself in jeopardy of being basically attacked like that when you're playing against City or even Liverpool, because Alisson has that in his locker as well in terms of kicking the ball long for Salah. And Salah is just like Haaland, very quick when he's running into space. So I think it was poor defending from Brighton in the sense that they did not give Haaland the respect in behind, and they were punished because Haaland recognized the space and he ran into the space, and Edison recognized Haaland's run. He put the ball, and also Edison saw that the goalkeeper is off his line. So Haaland will get a great opportunity of a one-on-one chance, and potentially he could be like basically he could have an opportunity of shooting at an open net because the goalkeeper is off his line. So he just pings the ball behind the centre backs for Brighton, behind the back line for Brighton, and Haaland runs into space. Lewis Dunk comes like basically he tries to block Haaland, but then Haaland just like brushes him aside, and then he gets like, and the goalkeeper, because it was off his line, he panics and he doesn't have enough time to react and go back to his line, and he tries and go he tries to go towards the ball, but Haaland gets there first, and he basically gets a simple tap in without the goalkeeper in the net, and he scores basically. So it was a great goal from Haaland, we obviously got a penalty in the first half, when basically Haaland scored it and went 2-0 up. But I do have a problem with that penalty. And the reason I have a problem with it is because in the first half, the goalkeeper, Sanchez, for Brighton, actually tripped Haaland. Like, literally, I think that situation, someone who watched the game will know what I'm talking about. There was a situation when Haaland, I think he got a ball from De Bruyne, and he basically ran towards the ball. He got a touch on the ball, and the goalkeeper basically tried to reach the ball with his foot. But by doing that, because Haaland got a touch, he made contact with his studs. Like, he basically made contact with Haaland's ankle/Achilles with his studs. Now, it was not a dangerous tackle or anything like that because Haaland was not hurt from it, but it was a foul. And I thought that was more of a penalty than the actual penalty we got from Bernardo Silva. I thought the one from Bernardo Silva was a bit soft. Obviously, I'll take it because it was our penalty and it allowed us to go 2 goals up, like 2 goals to 0. Basically, the score was 2-0 after we scored that penalty. But I do have a problem with the consistency from the referees because that Haaland situation is 10 times out of 10, almost always a penalty. Excuse me. You never see a situation where that situation does not result in a penalty. But for some reason, in that game, it was not a penalty. So I don't understand that. And the Bernardo Silva situation where I get it, there's contact, but contact doesn't mean it should be a penalty. Literally, I get it. Bernardo Silva gets to the ball first, and the Brighton guy dangles out the leg, and he makes contact with Bernardo Silva, and Bernardo Silva falls, and the referee in the end decides that it's a penalty. In my opinion, I think it's a bit soft. I wouldn't like my team to get I wouldn't like that situation to be given against my team because I think it's a bit soft. And I have a problem with the referees in the sense that how is that situation with regards to Haaland, the first one, how is that not a penalty? That's my question. I honestly don't get it. I don't get how that was not given as a penalty, if I'm being perfectly honest. So, yeah, that's just my opinion on it. I think, like, if you haven't seen it, you can watch the game back and see that and tell me that that's not a foul. That's not a penalty. Every game, if that happens, that is usually a penalty. On the first day of the season, when we played against West Ham, exactly the same situation happened against West Ham and it was given as a penalty. So I don't understand how that one was not given as a penalty. And for me, the first one, the Haaland one I'm talking about, is more of a penalty than the one from Bernardo Silva. Because the one from Bernardo Silva, I just thought it's a bit soft. But yeah, I guess it is what it is. And it was a great goal from De Bruyne. Obviously, Haaland scored the penalty. Great penalty from him. Power, pace on the ball. Hits it on the side. Goalkeeper, no chance. Literally, the goalkeeper didn't even have a chance to react. He just basically stood still. And Haaland scored, basically. So, great penalty from him. Up to 17 goals now in the Premier League this season. This guy's just phenomenal. I mean, we just talk about this guy all the time. He's just hitting ridiculous numbers. Obviously, he's being serviced by City. So that plays a role in it. But basically, Haaland, he's now on 17 Premier League goals this season. And that is only 6 of last season's top scorer. Because last season's top scorer, it was Son and Salah. They were both on 23. They shared the golden boot. They both had 23 goals. Haaland is 6 off that. in the first 2 months of the season. Because the season started in August, so okay, I guess I should count August, so 3 months. So August, September, October. So in the first 3 months of the season, the guy is 6 goals away from last season's top scorer. So it's just phenomenal from him. That's why I said actually earlier in my videos, I said Haaland will break Salah's record for a single for most goals in a single Premier League season, even if he gets injured for a month or two, because the guy literally he only needs 15 goals to reach Salah's record of 32 goals in one Premier League season, in a 38-game Premier League season. 15, and he's already on like 17, and it's like the first 3 months of the season. So I think it's phenomenal from him, and also considering the fact that he's not going to go to the World Cup, so even if he might pick up an injury like in early November, chances are by the time the Premier League returns on Boxing Day after the World Cup, he's going to be fit. So yeah, I'm really happy with him, and I've really been impressed with how brilliant he's been. Obviously, great goal from De Bruyne. Long range shot, kind of like puts the game to bed. We needed that goal because Brighton were kind of like, they had a spring in their step. They were attacking us constantly at that moment in time, and we were conceding chance after chance after chance. And basically, it was a great goal from him. Great goal from Kevin De Bruyne. I think the strike might have I think that there might have been a deflection from a Brighton player, which kind of caused the ball to go up a bit, which gave the goalkeeper no chance, basically. But take nothing away from the strike. It was a great goal from De Bruyne. But yeah, man, great goal from Trossard from a Brighton perspective, and great performance from them, because there were spells in that game where they were on top of us and we looked like we couldn't cope with them. But the same story every season with Brighton. They are one of the best teams in terms of creating opportunities and in terms of the football that they play, but they do not have the quality to finish the chances that they create. And if you can't score, you might have a performance where it was a 10 out of 10 performance in terms of build-up play. But the other team had top players in the team and therefore were able to score more goals than you. So that's just the harsh reality of football, in that there are games where you are the best team by far, but because the other team has top players that can have moments of brilliance and score goals out of nothing, you end up losing the game. So yeah, man, I thought it was a good performance from Brighton, but unlucky for them, they lost 3-1. And then obviously, guys, going to the other games. The other game that played on Saturday was the game between Chelsea and Man United. Really boring game, if I'm being perfectly honest, because like I kind of like bigged up the game last week Friday. Like big game, Stamford Bridge. It's gonna be interesting how Man United are gonna perform, how Chelsea are gonna perform. Man United coming off a Tottenham win, coming off a win against Tottenham, really playing well. Great performance from them against Tottenham. Probably should have won 4-0 or 5-0 if it wasn't for Hugo Lloris. But really, the game didn't live up to the hype. It was a poor game of football, in the sense that both teams simply could not create anything tangible in terms of creating chances. Like, there were a few times when the build-up play was decent, but both teams simply could not create anything. And as a result, it was a really boring game. Basically, the game burst into life in the final 5 minutes of the game, when McTominay basically pulls Armando Broja in the box, and he concedes a penalty to Chelsea. He concedes a penalty, and Chelsea get a penalty basically in the 88th minute. Jorginho scores the penalty, as he usually does. Jorginho is extremely reliable from the penalty spot. He scores it, then it's 1-0. Man United players are complaining about the penalty. Don't really know why they're complaining, because you can clearly see when you look at the replay that Scott McTominay literally holds Armando Broja. Like, he holds him for like 2, 3, 4 seconds and then lets him go. You can't do that. You can hold someone in the box, but you can't hold him for more than 1 second. You can't hold him for 3-4 seconds because the referee is always going to spot that. If the referee does not spot it, VAR is going to spot it, and it's always going to be a penalty. So I heard even some Man United fans complaining that it was not a penalty. That's absolute bollocks. That's not like it. It was a penalty. And there's just nothing. There's nothing you can say about like that situation not being a foul or not being a penalty. And it was a good penalty from Jorginho. Scores 1-0 to Man United. But then Man United basically attack in the 5 added minutes that were added by the referee. Casemiro has a leaping header, and Kepa actually gets a hand on the header, but he basically kind of like helps it towards goal. And by the time he kind of scrambles and tries to prevent the ball from going over the line, the ball had already gone over the line, and basically Man United score, and the scoreline ends up being 1-1. In the end, I thought that was a fair result because I didn't think Man United deserved to lose that game because there were large spells of that game when they outplayed Chelsea. They just couldn't create anything tangible because their build-up play was not good enough. So I didn't think Man United deserved to lose the game on the balance of things in terms of when you look at the game as a whole. But yeah, man, I thought like there were a few moments when Anthony kind of took on the Chelsea players, but nothing really came of it. Sancho was anonymous. He was substituted at the 52nd minute, rightfully so, because nothing he did in the game just came off. He was not getting his passes right. He wasn't taking anyone on as he does every game. Like, I think Sancho's confidence is so low that he doesn't even back himself to take players on anymore. So he kind of like, he's scared to fail at this moment in time because his confidence is so low. So yeah, man, it's a tough time for him at this minute. Hopefully he improves, obviously, but he's certainly not going to the World Cup. Like that plane has already departed, and he's definitely not going to the World Cup. His performances have not been good enough to basically make Gareth Southgate think that he can offer something in the World Cup. It's just not been good enough. So yeah, man, I hopefully for him, for his sake, he starts improving. I'm not one to try and slag players off and kind of say he's a flop or whatever. But you just gotta call it like how it is, in that he's just simply not being good enough, and he seems void of confidence. And yeah, man, like he was. I mean, when you get substituted for Fred, if you're a winger and you get substituted for Fred, that tells you all you need to know. It tells you all you need to know about your performance. Because Fred, first of all, is a midfielder. And he's not even great as a midfielder if you look at it in terms of like, it's not like he creates, like he's a creative midfielder that's going to create clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities for the team. So the fact that as a winger, you're being taken off the football pitch for Fred, that kind of tells you all you need to know. And it just tells you all you need to know about your performance, in that it was not good enough. But yeah, man, from the Chelsea side, I can't really say much because they didn't create much in the game. It was a good substitution from Graham Potter in the first half when he took off Marco Correa. Not because Marco Correa was playing poorly, but because they were being overrun in midfield and they were completely being dominated by Man United. They looked a little bit better when Kovacic went onto the pitch, but both teams did not create anything of substance to basically warrant a win. So it was probably a fair result in the end, but yeah, man. And then obviously going on to the games I played yesterday, which included the Arsenal game versus Southampton. Again, it was a draw. It was a 1-1 draw between Southampton and Arsenal. I haven't seen the goals of this game, but I heard from some people that it was a great goal from Granit Xhaka. And also it was a great finish from Adam Armstrong, the Southampton player. But actually, I predicted that Arsenal are going to win this game. But believe you me, I had a moment where I kind of thought, I never said this here, but I kind of thought back to last season with regards to Man City against Southampton, when we struggled to beat Southampton. And like both times we played them last season, and especially in the first leg, because we were tired from a game we played midweek in the Champions League. I think it was actually a 12:30 kickoff, 12:30 UK time kickoff. That Southampton game we played against Southampton last year at the Etihad. and really struggled against them, and we should have lost the game. Now, Arsenal were kind of in the same predicament in that they played on Thursday in the Europa League, and I apologize, guys, man. My video got stopped there because I had an alarm, so it kind of went off, and then it stopped my video. But yeah, you can see my lighting is a lot better as well, because I thought, like, I forgot about this, that I can connect the ring light to a laptop because I still have battery on the laptop. So yeah, man, it's a lot better than how it is. Than how it was when I didn't put on the ring light, because it was getting a bit like it was really bad now in terms of quality, because it's getting dark outside as well. So basically, guys, I was saying Arsenal were like in the same predicament in the sense that they played in the Europa League on Thursday, and they played a couple of their key players in that game. They played Jesus, they played Xhaka, I think they played Saka as well, because I think Arteta wanted to win that game against PSV because he wanted automatic qualification to the thingy, to the knockout phases of the Europa League. Because now he already has automatic qualification, he can rest players for match day 5 and match day 6 of the Europa League, meaning he can focus more on the Premier League games rather than focusing on those Europa League games. So now, but the flip side of that is that by playing those players in the Europa League midweek, they then kind of were lethargic in that second half because the players were probably feeling a bit jaded. They were a bit tired because in the first half, they played at a very high intensity. But second half, they kind of fell off from that intensity, and Southampton started winning the 50-50 duels between the two teams. And as a result, ended up scoring from that from basically Adam Armstrong. And as a result, when you like kind of look at the game in the grand scheme of things, it's probably a fair result in the sense that Arsenal dominated in the first half, but then in the second half, they were like a shadow of that team that dominated in the first half, and Southampton kind of probably deserved to score in the second half. And when you look at the game that way, then you can probably say it was a fair result. I saw a couple of Arsenal fans saying that the referee was a bit suspect in that game. I don't know what the referee did because I did not actually watch the game, so I can't really comment on that because I'm not sure. Like, I don't know what they were complaining about. But yeah, probably the referee made a bad decision, as the referees in the Premier League always do. I was ranting last week because of the referee. In the game when we played against Liverpool. So it happens to the best of us. I guess that's all I can say. And then just wrapping up the video, guys. The last game that played was the game between Tottenham and Newcastle. And Newcastle, it's safe to say Newcastle have arrived, because Newcastle are giving everyone a tough game. That's why I said, before I kind of jump on the bandwagon with regards to Arsenal winning the league or whatever, I want to see them going to stadiums like Anfield, St. James's Park, like all of these difficult stadiums to go to away, because St. James's Park away to Newcastle is a very tough place to go to. And Newcastle are a tough team to play against. Spurs in that game had a few opportunities, like on the opening moments of the game, where you could argue they should have taken probably a 1-goal or 2-goal lead. But Nick Pope had a brilliant save against Harry Kane in the second chance that they had. Son, I guess, is like struggling a bit with confidence so far this season because his performances haven't been good enough, because he had a one-on-one situation with Nick Pope, and instead of like kind of chipping the goalkeeper, he thought too much about it and he decided to chip him, but it was too late when he decided to do that. And I apologize there, guys, man. I didn't close the door, so my niece is kind of crashing my video now. But I'm sorry for that noise. But basically, because Son took some time to make his decision with regards to, okay, should I chip the goalkeeper or should I take a shot? Because of that, Nick Pope closed the angle, and Son, by the time he was thinking of chipping him, he was already literally in front of him and he could not chip him anymore. And Nick Pope ended up making the save. But those were crucial moments in the game, because 5-10 minutes later, Newcastle scored from a horrific goalkeeping moment from Lloris. Because I don't know what he's doing in that situation. Some people are arguing it's a foul. I don't think that's ever a foul, because Lloris runs into Callum Wilson and he falls to the ground because he ran into him. Now, you can't say that's a foul. You can't say when someone runs into someone else, it's a foul in favor of the person who ran onto someone. Because there's no rule that says you should move as, like, if you're seeing that someone is coming at you, then you have no obligation to move. And it's probably more of a foul by the goalkeeper because he's the one who ran onto Callum Wilson. But then he just falls to the ground because he's trying to buy the foul from the referee. The referee doesn't budge, and Callum Wilson basically executes the finish like the top finisher he is. And Newcastle are 1-0 up. And it was checked by VAR, but it was a horrific goalkeeping moment from Lloris because I don't know why he comes off his box and he basically lets the ball bounce against his knees, and he just lets it go to Callum Wilson. And he just keeps on running towards Callum Wilson and he bumps into him. In that situation, he should kick the ball instead of trying to take a first touch. Because if he kicks the ball, then Newcastle are not going to score because then Spurs can reset. But he tries to take a first touch with his knees and he ends up running onto Callum Wilson. He falls to the ground. Callum Wilson finishes the chance and Newcastle are 1-0 up. And I think after 20 minutes, Newcastle scored the second goal through Miguel Almiron. Great goal from him. I'm really happy for Almiron actually because he's starting to have some end product. I think Eddie Howe deserves huge credit and huge praise from this because when you look at the form of Joe Linton, before Eddie Howe was at Newcastle and after he's been at Newcastle, it's like the performances are from two different planets. Because under Steve Bruce, he was playing as the striker or as the winger, and he was really bad. But under Eddie Howe, he's playing as a midfielder, and he's really putting on great performances week in, week out. And Miguel Almiron is getting more and more composed, and he's playing with a lot of confidence in front of goal, and he's scoring goals and he's getting assists as well. So I'm really happy for Miguel Almiron with regards to him performing. And people are going to keep calling Jack Grealish out with regards to Miguel Almiron because he had a dig or a jab at Miguel Almiron. Yeah, I do understand it was like a bit of banter, but now Almiron, you could argue, is outperforming him because Almiron has 5 goals so far this season in the Premier League and Jack Grealish only has 1. And actually, when you kind of make it sound worse, Almiron has more goals than Jack Grealish has in a Manchester City shirt in the Premier League. Jack Grealish has 4 goals for Man City in the Premier League. Almiron has 5 this season. So basically, when you take into consideration the performances of Jack Grealish last season and this season, Jack Grealish has 4 goals. Miguel Almiron only has 5 goals so far only this season. And this is not a dig at Jack Grealish because Jack Grealish is my own player. So I'm not going to dig him out or say he's been poor or whatever or say I would rather have Almiron instead of him. But he kind of made his own bed by calling out Almiron. And now everyone is going to... Every time Almiron scores, until Jack Grealish gets the same number of goals or more, people are going to call him out for that. And he only has himself to blame because he's the one who called out Almiron, which I thought was a bit classless from him because I don't think you should ever call out someone, no matter how bad they are. Unless they're a friend and you calling them out face to face because you're having a bit of banter with them and they're a friend. But you shouldn't call out someone from another team who's been playing bad. I think that's a bit classless. But yeah, I thought it was a brilliant performance from Newcastle United. Obviously, Spurs came back into the game and they scored. And the score ended up... Well, the game ended with a 2-1 scoreline to Newcastle. Obviously, Spurs were again, pragmatic, sat back, didn't create much, conceded a lot of chances. The problem with Spurs is that there's nothing wrong with playing a defensive style of football. But when you're going to play a defensive style of football and you don't have great defenders, it starts becoming a problem. Because you're playing a defensive style of football, but you still concede chances because your defenders are not good enough. Davinson Sanchez is an accident waiting to happen. The guy, I'm sure Tottenham fans, when they watch him play, they get nervous because you worry that this guy's he's gonna make an error. There's always an error in him. So that's the problem for Antonio Conte, in that he's playing a defensive style of football, but his defenders are not world-class defenders. So as a result, he will concede chances, and he's putting too much pressure on his attacking players to be clinical, because they concede goals, because they always concede chances against teams, and they conceded loads of chances against Newcastle, especially in that first half when they were carved open by Newcastle multiple times. So again, not a brilliant performance from them, and this has been a long time coming for Spurs, because there's no game in this season when you can say Spurs have been brilliant. Really, pretty much in the majority of the games they've played this season, they were second best, but because they were playing, for example, in the game they played against Wolves, in the first half, Wolves completely outplayed Tottenham, but couldn't score because Wolves are not potent enough. And then second half, the Spurs players, the Spurs attacking players switched on they basically shifted up a few gears. They went from gear 1 to gear 4, gear 5, and scored a goal and ended up winning the game. So that's what you can do when you have top attacking players. But when you play against good teams that can punish you, like Newcastle, like Arsenal, then it's simply not going to, like Man United, who they lost to as well, conceding chance after chance after chance after chance is not going to work out for you, because eventually you will get punished, which is what has happened against Arsenal, against Man United, and against Newcastle. They conceded too many chances, and as a result, were punished, and as a result, conceded goals and ended up winning and ended up losing all those games. So Antonio Conte has to find a better balance in terms of finding a better balance between defense and attack, because he can't afford playing a defensive style of football for the whole game, because his team is not good enough to do that. His midfield and his defenders are not good enough to defend in that manner, where they are going to concede chance after chance after chance after chance, because they don't have world-class defenders. You can do that if you have world-class defenders who can keep a clean sheet, but if you don't have that, then you can't do that. So that's basically what I kind of took out from the game. And that was a brilliant performance from Newcastle, but it was kind of same old Spurs, in the sense that we've been seeing this from Antonio Conte so far this season. And in the games when they've played decent teams, they've been punished because they concede far too many chances. And as a result, that puts a lot of pressure on their attacking players to be clinical, which is not always going to happen. And also they're struggling at the moment because they're missing Dejan Kulusevski, because Kulusevski is injured at the moment, and Kulusevski is one of their better players attacking wise in terms of creating chances. So they're struggling a bit with that as well. So yeah, man, I thought it was a brilliant performance from Newcastle, and Newcastle fully deserved to win that game. But yeah, guys, I'll wrap up the video then, man. Because it's getting dark as well now, and kind of my quality, the video quality is pretty bad. So I'll wrap up the video. If you haven't done so, guys, please subscribe to the channel, and also please push that thumbs up button to like the video. That also helps in supporting the channel. I really appreciate if you guys did that. And also please push that notification bell so that you can get notified each time I post a new video. And I'd really appreciate that support, guys, if you just continue to subscribe to the channel. And please recommend my channel to your friends and all of that. Even if people don't know me, even if they're not going to listen, just give the video a thumbs up. I'd really kind of appreciate that, because it would boost my my YouTube algorithm, because I'll be getting more subscribers. So I'd really appreciate that, guys, man. If you guys would be kind enough to do that for me. But yeah, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of your day. I will be making another video because I have to preview the games, the Champions League games that are going to be playing tomorrow and Wednesday. But yeah, guys, I would really appreciate you guys kind of supporting the channel, and enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you for tuning into the channel, and thank you for watching the video. Yeah, man. Thank you for watching.